Yes, you see the thumbnail, you see the titles, it's not the clickbait, and it's definitely not one of those niche builds that could only apply to certain conditions. It is objectively the best 4-set, and now you can click off the videos and enjoy this smooth ride with this knowledge. Or you can keep listening to me yapping about why is it better than any other 4-set until the 8-minute mark, so I can bail myself out of my mom's basement. This is a cry for help. So why swing jazz is the best 4-set? Because she loves jazz music. Anyway, on 2-set it gives 20% energy regen, and on 4-set it gives 15% damage increase for freaking 12 seconds when you launch a chain attack or ultimate. And what do Evelyn do? She launched chain attack by herself, which is her main sources of damage. Every time she launched a chain attack is equivalent to 45% of her ultimate, and no other unit could launch chain attacks like Evelyn do, because she loves to chain her enemies. I swear that I'm not into BDSM, but I desperately want her to perform chain attacks on me. There's no other unit and agent in the game that could utilize swing jazz on the levels that Evelyn does. You don't need to do any kind of setup or pre-buffing or any song and dance in order to get all those buffs like Woodpecker and Hormone punks. You are getting almost near 100% uptime from the swing jazz. And I think a lot of people don't really realize this because of the pre-assumption that the swing jazz was meant for the support and not really for the DPS. And it creates this really tricky blind spot that I actually got this from random comments, which feels like on the CN side. And the deeper I think about it, the more sense it makes. And what about the 20% energy regen? I think it's actually pretty good, because more energy means that you could use more skill, and the more you use the skill, the more chain attacks you're gonna get. So I do think that energy regen might be more beneficial than crit rate. And I think the reason why swing jazz is the best 4-set, because there's no actual best set for the Evelyn. Like the Woodpecker need a lot of song and dance in order to get all the procs, and the buff would only last 6 seconds. And for the Hormone punks, the 24% attack would only be available for every 20 seconds, and it really depends on if you are able to land that 24% attack buff during the stun window or not, which could be practically done when you are playing Zhuyuan and the Hanumasa. But Evelyn is more of a quick swappy characters by design, so her kit doesn't really match with the Hormone punks. So it's gonna be very inconsistent, and I don't think it's the skill issue, cause no amount of skill could cover that 10 seconds of downtime. And that's why some people even suggest that going for 2-2-2 is not actually bad at all. Well, enough nerding with the theory crafting. I will just run a gameplay from this channel and see how Woodpecker perform in this run. I wanna let you guys know that this gameplay is not being done by your 8-year-old niece that borrow your account, but one of the best gameplay I've seen on the YouTube. So he used skill and hold basic attacks to pre-buff for the chain attacks during the stun window, and later engaged the stun here, so he got 18% attacks buff for the chain attack, getting 783,000 here. But in second chain attacks, he got 696,000 because he only got 1 stack. He did another hold basic here to maintain the 1 stack. And on the third chain attacks is the same numbers at the second chain attacks. And he finished off with the ultimate here with only 1 stack. For those who are unfamiliar with the Woodpecker set, there are 3 ways to get the stack, and each of them are calculated separately. The first one is being any form of basic attack, the second one is the skill, the third one is dodge attack. And you can't realistically get the third one unless you get some kind of really crazy RNG from the enemy attack pattern before the stun. But even if that is the case, the buff from basic attack and skill wouldn't be able to catch up with that, because the duration is just simply too short, and it doesn't even last to the second chain attack. So out of 4 attacks including the ultimate, only first attack was benefit from the 2 stack, and if he doesn't charge basic in the middle of the chain attacks, he would be throwing all the 4-set effects out of the window. So even if you could perform this perfectly, the benefit is just simply not worth it. One single mistake would have been already worse than the build like 2-2-2, and you would put yourself into this high risk low return situation. and 18% attack is actually worth less than 15% of damage because this is how Sunless Zone Zero calculated. On the other hand, you could have just played her mindlessly and get all the full benefit of 15% damage with Swing Jazz. So not only Swing Jazz made it easier for majority of the player, but also give a better stat. And let's not forget that the 15% damage buff is applied to the whole team, especially when you're playing her with Lighter, who also dish out as much damage as Soldier 11 if not more. The Blanche and Blade song still remain the best 2-set. If you don't have enough crit, just go with Woodpecker. An attack 2-set is slightly behind the Blanche and Blade song. For those who don't understand why 18% attacks is not better than 15% damage, like 1 is because of the diminishing return, cause you're probably gonna use attack percentage on this number 6, which you would get 30% attacks, and if you're building Evelyn like randomly, you could realistically get about another 10% of attacks, and adding 18% attacks on top of 140 is like 12.9% of damage increase, which is less than 15% damage. And the second reason is how they calculate the damage, which they put damage percentage after the attack percentage. You could roughly assume that 15% damage is about 20% attacks because it multiplied to the larger numbers than the attacks percentage. So what about the team setup? If you use Swing Jazz on Evelyn, then you can keep Astro Voice on the Astra or any other support and use Protopunks on Lighter or any stunner to get another 15% damage buff. Just make sure that you parry the enemy before you get into the stun window. I haven't mentioned about the Inferno 4-set because it's straight up bad. You need to procs burn in order to get 28% of crit rate. And the only characters in the game that could do that is Bernice. And from the last video I made, Evelyn and Bernice are not exactly synergistic. It's not like they have any anti-synergy, but they definitely don't work well together. So boo to the Inferno set. It's not even an option. Well, if you watch the video until this point, you might find that I'm tiptoeing around the mask and hypothesizing this and that, and don't test the gear by myself because most of her kits are simple enough to be figured out by playing her in the event, and the possibility of her team is also narrow enough to be very predictable. But most importantly, I'm kind of broke now, so I decide to save up for the future content. And thanks to all you guys, I've reached 2,000 subs the other day, and it means more than you can imagine. And recently I've been doing multi-stream on both YouTube and Twitch. I had a lot of good time with the chat. Please give me some follow on Twitch, and even if you don't, thank you for watching up to this point. Every second you watch this video means everything to me, and I hope all of you guys could win the 50-50 and take Evelyn home. And I guess that's about it. See you guys.